Hey, Phoenix Forte listeners. We are so excited for season two to drop. We've had to make a couple of changes. And so we just wanted to give you a heads up. And we're using episode one as a way to introduce some of the changes that we've had to make.
Yes, so you will, I'm sure you've already seen the title and probably already know that it is about chronic illness. And so that kind of leads into why things may look a little different this season. So I have chronic illness. I have a couple that are pretty debilitating, and unfortunately, they are very significantly flared at the moment and are becoming seemingly more difficult to manage. So, as I am navigating that and working through that, I will be on some of the episodes, and some of the episodes I may not, but I will miss you all. And I will be here as much as I can because I love it and I love you guys.
All right. So, episode one, little insights into what it's like to live with chronic illness. We hope that you guys will feel validated if you live with it and that you'll understand a little bit about those of us who do live with them if it's not something that you experience. And then through the rest of the season, sometimes Patty will be with us. Sometimes she'll need to be doing some self care outside of being with us. We're just going to love and
Yes.
support you, whatever you need.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, it's Ashley and Patty, and we are your co hosts for the Phoenix Forte podcast. Join us to connect to healing and joy after divorce by chatting with phenomenal guests, fearlessly confronting hot topics, and feeling the spirit with our mic drop moments.
So jump into the flames, rise from the ashes, and be strong and loud as you hang out with us here at Phoenix Forte.
Hey, welcome back, Phoenix Forte listeners. We are so excited for season two to finally be here. We have been recording episodes and working so hard, and our season two is going to be just incredible. And this is going to be our first episode of season two, and it's going to be such a good one. So hang in here with us for this conversation. Our guest today is Elaine, and we've brought her on to have an open conversation about what it feels like to experience trauma while simultaneously having to deal with a chronic illness. All three of us, Patty, Elaine, and myself, have our own chronic illnesses that we deal with, and they affect us in different ways.
Yes.
And so we just wanted to kind of talk about it for a minute. So, Patty, I'm going to pass it to you if you want to introduce the
Okay.
topic just a little bit more, and then
Okay.
introduce Elaine a little bit more, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good. I'm really excited to have Elaine on because she's been such a light for me because going through chronic illness, if any of our listeners have a chronic illness, they probably know this and are probably very familiar that it can be very isolating. And for me, I have felt many times very alone, just not really knowing anybody who like knows what it's like to go through like betrayal trauma or divorce or anything like that while dealing with a chronic illness. And when I met Elaine, that changed for me. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, she gets it. She gets it like me. So she's just been a huge light for me. And I just love her and her spirit. And I'm really excited to have her here. Welcome, Elaine.
Thank you.
And yeah, we're super excited to have you here. And yeah, I guess we're just gonna have a conversation on what it's like to have chronic illness. Does anybody want to start just talking about kind of maybe what they deal with on a regular basis or anything like that?
I can start.
All right.
Okay, please.
So I have, I think five. I'm losing track of how many different chronic illnesses that I
Yeah.
have. My first one was endometriosis, which I've had since, as far as I know, since I was 16, and it was an escalating thing where I just had like really super painful periods my whole life, and then like sex was painful and all of those things, and then I was actually super lucky to ever be able to have children because of it as well. And then I also had adenomyosis, which, so endometriosis is when you have little bits of the uterus that have attached themselves in muscle tissue and outside of the uterus. And every time your hormones are activated, which is obviously at least twice a month, then it's very, very painful. Just imagine like you have sores basically in your muscles. So every single time that your hormones are activated, it's very painful. And they tend to like lodge themselves in very painful places as well. And then that pain is, exacerbated when, there's outside pressure or whatever. So there's that going on. But I also had adenomyosis, which is where the uterine tissue is falling apart because the little pieces inside the uterus are like falling apart. So I ended up having a hysterectomy at the age of 32, which I was really grateful that obviously I already had my kids, but so that was like a huge thing during marriage to deal with, obviously. And then let's see, next up, I had it's called, they used to refer to it as chronic fatigue, but now they're calling it myalgic myelitis, although some people still call it myalgic encephalomyelitis chronic fatigue syndrome. Whatever you want to call it, it sucks.
There you go. That's what matters. It does. It sucks.
It really doesn't matter what you call it because it's incredibly debilitating. And for a lot of people that have long COVID, it's very similar. In fact, they're saying that a lot of people that have long COVID actually do have ME/CFS. And so people think that it's actually fatigue, but what it is, it's actually called post-exertional malaise. And so anytime you exert any, like just getting out of bed, walking, any exertion that you have, then you have this malaise afterwards where it's not like, it's indescribable. Like your arms, everything feels heavy and you have to sleep, like everything. And if you look at the name myalgic encephalomyelitis, it there's swelling on the brain. So you have what a lot of people call brain fog or short-term memory loss, where like coming up with names or certain things are affected, but sometimes your whole memory is affected. And so that makes it really hard to function as well. There's joint pain, there's muscle pain, there's pain. There's it's super brutal, and it can come and go. And there are some things that they can do to relieve some of the pain, but a lot of times it will come back. And what was curious for me was that I've had this for sure for at least 16 years. And then it was towards the end of my marriage that it was really starting to hit. And the doctors were like doing these treatments, and I was getting better for a period of time, and then it would come back, and they were like, why is it coming back? Why is it coming back? And my doctor actually told me, he asked me like, well, do you have any stress going on in your life? What kinds of stress do you have? And we went through and talked about it, and I explained to him, well, I think I might be getting a divorce. And he's like, oh, well, that's it. We see this all the time with women who have betrayal trauma, that it will come back, and there's really not anything we can do, because that when you have trauma like that, it's just going to be what it is. It's really hard to manage.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna jump in. I hope that's okay.
Go ahead.
That idea of when you're experiencing trauma or stress, anytime I have a doctor ask me, do you have any stress in your life? I just laugh at them.
Yeah.
Are there really people who don't have stress in their life? Is that a thing?
Right.
I just laugh. But the way that stress affects the body in general, and then the way that stress affects the body when there's chronic illnesses that's there, is so harmful. It's just so, you can't get away from it. It's just so there. It's present in everything, that I end up stressed about having stress, because I know it's affecting my body, and I know it's affecting my chronic illnesses in a way that's not containable, but it's so debilitating, and it's just like, it just stops you in your tracks, right? Where you just can't move.
But it's not even just stress, it's also the trauma. Because even though emotionally we can heal from the trauma, these are scars that don't heal. The body keeps the score. There's a great book called that.
I was just about to say, I love that book. I felt it was so validating, that body keeps the score book.
Yeah, and it does. And there's things that don't come back. And so that one's a difficult one. So I also have arthritis, and what else? Oh, chronic kidney disease, stage 3. And yeah, so all of the things, they all work together. I have to have a special diet for this, and I have to have this special diet, and I have to do this. I can't exercise with chronic fatigue, ME, whatever you want to call it. You can't exercise at all. Like a lot of doctors will still say, well, try to exercise a little bit, and that's actually the worst thing that you can do. So there's just like so much going on that it's really hard. And it's really hard because one doctor will tell you this and one doctor will tell you that. And I've been to so many doctors, and it took me so long even just to get those diagnoses. And that alone is so discouraging and so debilitating in and of itself. And then you have the mental health symptoms that come in, because I don't know anyone that could withstand that without having depression. And I already had all that stuff anyways. So I also, see a psychiatrist and take antidepressants to make sure that, I don't go down that route also. So it's a lot. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's a lot. And it's so hard to figure out and navigate, and all of the different doctors and figuring out the different medicine regimes and how to handle it and how to eat and I know, Patty, lots of your story has been a bunch of different medical professionals and trying to just figure out how to mitigate the things that are going on.
Yeah, and I wonder, Ashley, if you have any thoughts or you can touch on this, that just like you were saying, Elaine, that you had to go to several different doctors to even get that diagnosis, right? And then you go to some doctors who actually really don't believe you. They don't believe what you're saying. So then not only are you facing gaslighting from your doctor who you're supposed to be able to trust and who's going to help you, then you're at home being gaslit by a husband who is supposed to be your life partner, who you're supposed to be able to trust, you're supposed to be able to be with for all eternity. And it's like, okay, how do I not believe that I'm not crazy? Like, how could I am crazy. Like, the medical professionals basically are telling me I'm crazy. My husband tells me I'm crazy. Like, I must be crazy. And so I would think that that's traumatizing in and of itself for people that face these things. What I don't wonder if you have thoughts on that, Ashley.
Yeah, of
no,
course.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Elaine.
Yeah, and also it's like you were saying, how isolating it is. No one gets it. Like, in our church, we have people that reach out to us that are supposed to come visit us all the time. And they're like, let us come visit you. Let us make you dinner. I'm like, I'm on a special diet. So no, please don't bring me food. And second of all, please don't visit me because I might be sleeping. Sometimes I sleep at 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes I sleep at 10 in the morning. Sometimes it's both. And I never know when it's going to be that my body needs to sleep. So just please leave me alone. And they're like, but they're like, well, we want to reach out to you. So I'm like, send me a text, send me an email. Like, you can still reach out to me, but then they like don't get it. And so they just ignore me altogether. And it's incredibly isolating.
Yeah.
Yes.
What kind of tools have you guys used? Oh, sorry, Patty.
No. Go ahead, Ashley. Go ahead. What did you say?
I was just wondering the how to like speak up for yourself and advocate for yourself. That yes, I recognize you're reaching out and wanting to help me, and here is how I get help. What kind of I use the word tools because that's what I use clinically all the time. But what kind of tools are you, or what kind of ways have you guys adapted into letting people know this is a piece of me? I recognize you might not understand it, so I can't go into even all of it. And here's what I need in order to get help. Have you guys had to bring specific things into your life to do that?
Yes, I think for me, I think in some parts I have not adapted because I've just been annoyed and I get discouraged and I just am like, I'm just going to ignore them also because I don't want to keep reaching because I feel like I'm too much, and to try to explain all the different things to get around all these different, for you to actually be able to help me, it just seems like too much. So it's just like, I just throw my hands up and I just give up. And then in other ways, I think that just boundaries have been a big thing about just like, hey, for example, like, hey, I appreciate you calling and wanting to reach out to me. This is a specific thing that I need, and this is a specific thing you can help me with. If that's not something you can help me with, then it's okay. Thanks so much. And I appreciate you reaching out. Just like leaving it at that and not having like guilty or shameful feelings because I said no. Or I decided I'm going to choose myself here and I'm going to say, you know what? Actually, your help is hurting me. So I'm going to say no, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to adjust. And in my family, no one ever recognized my boundaries, and it was really hard. My mom especially, and so we set up a thing. I said, email me a joke, like once a week, once a month, however often, like that would help me, like, because she would call me at like weird hours of the day anyways, like my whole life. And so that worked for about like a month, but then she's not good with boundaries. So But that was something I'm like, that helps me. Laughing helps me. Sending me jokes, that's great. And I tell people, like, text me things, email me things. Please don't call me because I might be sleeping. Please don't knock at my door. Definitely don't come unannounced because I'm 99% of the time in my pajamas and or sleeping. So I just tell everybody, please leave me alone, but don't leave me alone. Don't forget me.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I tell them if I need something, if they're like, well, let me go to the store for you. Let me do this. I'm like, I will tell you if I need you. I will send you a list, and I will be very specific. I will tell you exactly what I need if I do. And I have had people go to the store for me, like, um, my one friend will say, like, I'm at Costco right now. Do you need something? And then, if I do, I'm like, great. And they'll bring it by and everything. Like, I've used that. Um, but yeah, it's very difficult for people to understand. And there's only a few people in my life, I think, that I've actually reached that kind of understand
Yeah.
what it is and respect those boundaries.
Yeah. It's hard because anyone who doesn't experience chronic illness doesn't experience it. They don't understand it. And so they see, oh, I'm just trying to help, or I'm doing all of these things, which is accurate. They are trying to help and they are doing nice things and they're trying to be beneficial. But if you haven't walked in the shoes of someone who just can't right now, then sometimes the boundaries of, hey, I appreciate your help, but I can't. We can't get to this thing. We're not going to be able to do that. I can't do this. I'm not going to eat this food, can be seen or received as like a wall or an attack, which then feeds into that isolation, right? Of when I do put up a boundary, or when I do let you know what I need, or when I do express that this isn't something that I can participate in or whatever, that if people pull away, then it adds into that feeling of isolation and I feel like having to navigate, how do I live my life in a way that I need to, my body needs me to, and let people know that I don't want to be isolated. It was like you were saying,
Mhm.
just leave me alone. Don't forget about me. I
Yeah.
want to be part of what you're doing. I want to be part of your thoughts. Please don't forget about me. But I can't function in the same world, or in the world the same way that you do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think that like almost I'm wondering, Elaine, if this is what you're describing, is that sometimes people will even like look at us and think like, oh, she's flaky, she's not dependable, she just doesn't really actually want to hang out. Oh, she actually just, or she's lazy,
Mhm.
or she's like, oh, she just doesn't really want to come to church today, or like whatever it may be. And people, of course, they have the best of intentions. And of course, if they're not have never lived with anyone or lived with the experience of chronic illness, they're just not going to know. So that's like their thoughts necessarily of no fault of their own necessarily, but it is just like a big misunderstanding. I feel like for people with chronic illness too, it's just that like um that couldn't be further from the truth. That like if we could do anything to have any control over our physical symptoms so that we could be there or participate or be acknowledged or to help or to do whatever it would be, I'd bet $1 million that like that's what we'd be doing, like for sure,
Yeah.
like we just can't. And a lot of people just really, really don't understand that. Like they can't even fathom that that could be an actual possibility that we're living with.
Yeah. One of the most hurtful things is everyone says, hi, how are you doing? And then, like, what do you want me to say? It's never going to be a
Yeah.
different answer. I'm never going to be well
Yes.
again. There's never going to be a day. I've accepted it. It would be really kind of you if you would also accept that. And like,
Yes.
I don't need to go through this explanation every single time I see you. I'm not well. So I just say, I'm here. And that's all you
Yep.
get. Like, that's the best that you're ever going to get from me. And if I'm here, then that is great. Like, like if I'm out of bed and I'm dressed and I'm somewhere, then that is a great day.
Huge victory.
Yeah.
Booyah.
I saw this I saw this meme, and I heard it talked about in the BYU Women's Conference in April of 2019. They were talking about mental health, and the mental health provider that they were interviewing said one of the hardest things that we can do on ourselves is compare ourselves to ourselves on our best day. That recognizing we can't function the same way on our best day as we do on our not so best day, and that both of those can be good days. And so I've seen a meme that's similar. It's like, here's how I function on this day, and here's how I function on this day, and both of them are wins. Both of them are successful. Just sometimes I'm up and out of bed and able to move around. And other times it hurts to be wearing clothing because I have a chronic illness that causes my skin to hurt, which apparently isn't normal. And I didn't learn that till like 3 years ago. But sometimes,
Not normal.
sometimes I can't even be up moving around because it just hurts to even have something touching me at all, let alone people wanting to come give me hugs and wanting to like needing to do the dishes or sweeping. It physically hurts to try to engage in the world in a way that maybe feels normal or is normal for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the hardest thing for me is giving everything up. Like I used to go from, 5 in the morning till 11:30 at night, 12 at night, every single day, nonstop. I have 2 kids with disabilities, and I was doing everything for everyone. My whole life, that was my thing, and which is kind of why I'm here also, because I always took care of everybody else. And just being able to be okay with not doing that anymore, and be okay that that's just never going to happen anymore, that I'm never going to be exercising again, that I'm never going to be doing those things again. That is honestly like the hardest part about chronic illness, is coming to terms with what you can no longer do. And that is something that I think no one understands unless you've been there. Trying to explain that to people, what it feels like to not be able to get out of bed some days. I just don't think that people understand that unless they've been there. And that is very, very isolating as well. And that, I think, is really the hardest part, keeping mental health like healthy, is just dealing with that, and accepting that, and recognizing that that's a win some days, like this is a win, and then this is a win. Like you said, like it's really, really hard.
Yeah, and having like the mental health um to be able to recognize that and accept that and really live in that, like believe that, I guess is really what I'm looking for, to really believe that. And I'm so grateful that you shared what you just shared, because I don't think I could agree with you more, actually. I don't think I really could agree with you more, because I would definitely say that that is the hardest part, and like brought tears to my eyes, because it's like every day you're like grieving something different, like, and maybe there are some days that are filled with less grief than others, because you're able to do more, or able to maybe not feel as much pain, or whatever it may be, but it's like, yeah, there's like all this grief all the time, because there's all these things, at least for me, that I want to do, and I just can't do them, and but of no control or power of my own. And it's like, wait a minute, and so like just getting into that place of acceptance and grieving those things, like what you're saying, you'll never be able to exercise again, like you're not going to be who you were before, right? Because you have these illnesses. And it's like, but that seems so unfair. Like that pisses me off. Like, no, I don't. Okay, well, okay, white flag. I don't want that. Like, okay, try something else, because that's not. I don't want to do that. So, anyways, I'm really glad we're doing this episode, because just having you on and you here and you talking is just like, I hope helpful for other people, but definitely it's just so impactful and helpful for me. I just feel like so much less alone, that there are other people that deal with that too, and know that like that really is one of the hardest things, is trying to just come to terms with like acceptance of like the different things that you just can't do or whatever. And yeah, I'm wondering, do you have any thoughts on any of that, Ashley?
I kind of wanted to share a story that maybe exemplifies what this looks like and feels like a little bit, because it's been on my mind. So I'm going to share. So in high school, my favorite form of exercise was swimming. Swimming was the best. I would get up at 5:30 in the morning. My friend and I would go do laps. We had this goal to be able to swim across the lake at our hometown and be able to do it comfortably. And so we would lap swim all the time. In the summer, it was daily. We would go daily, lap swim, spend hours in the pool, and it was my favorite. And I felt so good. My body felt so good. This is what I loved. When I was pregnant with my first child, I started taking a water aerobics class because I couldn't lap swim quite as much. There was too much drag happening, but I could take this water aerobics class, and it felt so good. And I felt so good, and my body felt so good. Well, last summer, I was like, okay, I got to start taking care of my body a little bit better. I didn't know quite as much about my chronic illnesses that I do now. So now I look back, I'm like, oh, if only I had known. But at the time I didn't know. And I found a gym that had a water aerobics class. And I was like, okay, I'll start there. I had to give up lap swimming. I didn't even think about this part. I had to give up lap swimming because I have bad joints, and kicking when I'm lap swimming really, really, really hurts my knees to the point where I can't walk after. So I decided I was going to do water aerobics. And I showed up and I was so excited and a little uncomfortable because it was a new place and I didn't know what it was going to look like and feel like. And I get in the water and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. And I just pretended like my body was the same that it was before. And I participated fully in this. And immediately I got out of the pool and immediately I just went, oh, I think maybe that was too much. I didn't know that it was too much at the time, but I think maybe it was too much. And progressively, as I got out to my car and got home, my body just got more and more done. I was exhausted. It was literal pain from head to toe. I couldn't move. And all I wanted to do was just go lay down in my bed. My bed is up 2 flights of stairs. I got up the first flight. It was only 3 steps. I get up the first flight, but to get up, I was leaning on the wall and like pulling myself, right? I could not, my legs weren't going to move. My torso couldn't move. And I get up to the next flight of stairs, and that flight I think has 7. And I made it up 3 and I couldn't move. And I couldn't go up to get to my bed. And I couldn't go down to get back down to the couch. I was just on the stairs. And I literally could not, and if you don't know how it feels, you might not believe it, but I could not get my foot to go up another step or get my arms to help me move, like change directions so that I could go down. And I just sat down on the stairs in a really slow, like crumble kind of way because my body couldn't move fast enough to actually sit, and just sobbed, going, all I was trying to do was take care of this body. And I did it in a pretty easy way. Like water aerobics is not something that's super big, right? And I couldn't understand. And just that grief of, I can't even just go do my favorite activity because afterward I'm stuck on a staircase. And it happened to be a day that my kids were not with me. And so thankfully I didn't have to try to parent. But if I had had my kids that day and trying to parent, I've parented from the couch so many times on days where my body just can't. And so I intentionally don't get any kind of movement or exercise on the days that they're here. But the awareness and the grief of not being able to do this thing that I love to do, because afterward I'm stuck on a staircase. And how absolutely ridiculous is it that I'm stuck on a staircase? It felt so insane. And talk about isolating, and nobody knew. It was just me sitting on the
Sitting
staircase.
there.
I did finally
Yeah.
call my mom and just cried to her for a minute, but it's just so hard, that grief that hits you every single day over a new thing that you're like, oh no, turns out my body doesn't like to do this anymore.
Yes. Yeah. And I think like, so for me just a little bit, and so I have endometriosis and Lyme disease. I have a bunch of other things. It just, the names don't even matter, but what really matters is that the symptoms of what I deal with every day. And for me personally, it's a roller coaster ride. Like each day I wake up, it's something different. And even what you were just talking about too, Ashley, about just like how ridiculous is it that all you did was go to a water aerobics class? Like you just did water aerobics. It's not like you went and ran a marathon or something, like triathlon or something. You did a water aerobics class and you can't get up your stairs. Like that, so frustrating. Okay, so for me, it is each morning I wake up, I just have no idea. Like I don't know from one minute to the next, especially right now. My Lyme is especially flared. And sometimes it can disguise itself like it's endo and send you on a journey that you really think you have endometriosis going on when you don't. And so my Lyme is really flared right now. So from one minute to the next, it could be that it feels like 1,000 needles are being shoved into my body, that somebody is shooting the back of my calves with a nail gun, that I am stepping into nails on the bottoms of my feet. Sometimes the bend of my toes, the bend of my fingers will hurt. I will get headaches, be tired, throwing up. I do a lot of that lately. And just like severe. The only way I know how to describe my abdominal pain, and if my physical therapist was listening to me describe this, I would be in much trouble with her because she does not like me to describe it this way. But this is what it really feels like. So I'm just gonna put it to y'all straight that it literally feels like somebody has wrapped barbed wire around my abdomen, around my back, has taken it on each side, and it's just ripping. And you're just like, oh, okay. It is excruciating pain. And I know that because Elaine said that she had endo. I know that she definitely knows that feeling. And yeah, it's absolutely debilitating. And for me, it's very hard to predict my life because I just don't know what's coming next. And how all that really applies to my marriage and then divorce was I'm in a new marriage. And so now my new husband is also getting acclimated with a disease that I have lived with for like 15 years, and he is just now learning. And we even went through many traumatic experiences with my health. He did not cope well, obviously. Um, However, like it was super traumatic for him as well. I'm sure of it. Some of the things that we had to go through, some of my hospital stays, not being able to speak or swallow, being put on a feeding tube, those kinds of things are scary. You have a new wife and now she can't speak or swallow. You have no idea what's going on. Like that's very, very, very scary. Then like there's a lot of, I think, anger that comes into it of like, why is this happening? And those kinds of things. And I think in my situation, some of that was directly taken out on me and just a lot of misunderstanding too. And that kind of comes into play. And then I came to a place where I was so ill and stuck in the bed, and I was solely dependent on this other person. And sometimes the only human contact I had, which put me in a really vulnerable place for abuse and lies and all kinds of things coming in to play. And I'm not having any other human interaction. So why would I disbelieve anything that's being said to me? This is the only kind I'm getting. And then also, it laid a ground of fear when I finally learned that what's happening in my marriage is not okay and that this is not a safe place for me to be. Well, I can't leave here. Like, I can't even get out of my bed. I can't, like, there are certain things I can't do for myself. So, how will I ever be able to do it and make it out there, like, alone without him? And so I think for me, that really played a huge part in delaying my choice to divorce because I was so scared about like what I was going to be able, like what I was going to do when I did get out, because I had all this debilitating illness, like what was I going to do? So that was like a big part of how it played into my like divorce, I guess. Did you have anything like that, Elaine, with yours?
Yeah, I was like terrified. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to work to support myself. My kids, like, actually, you talk about parenting. My kids thought that parents lived on the couch because that's where they saw me most of the time. And it really hit home, like when my doctor told me, like, yes, your marriage is what's causing this. And then I wasn't able to get to like my kids' school functions and stuff like that. I was like, okay, I've got to figure this out. Like, I've got to figure out a way. And it was really hard. But the interesting thing was that I had about probably 9 months of like symptom free once he moved out, because it was so freeing and everything. And then stress hit. It's been all downhill since then.
That's so
But
interesting. One of my symptoms is irregular cycles. I don't cycle regularly. And all throughout my marriage, my cycle, I could go like 14 days on, 14 days off. I could go 2 days on and then 93 days off. And I just never knew. I never knew when it was going to hit. All of my hormones would build. And so the longer it stretched before I had a period again, the more my anxiety would build, the more my anger would build, like just all these hormones would build until I finally went into it. But I didn't have regular that I could track at all. And I tried all the tracking tools. And then the month I decided to get a divorce, about 2 weeks later, I had my period. And then 28 days later, I had my period. And then 28 days later, I had my period. And I had a full 2 years of a regular cycle for the first time in a decade. Just suddenly being able to go, okay, my body's feeling safe now.
yeah, it's amazing.
It really is.
Yeah, and I think like to be kind of touch on what you said, Elaine, that the doctor said like your marriage is causing this kind of thing, right? So we are scared to leave the marriage because we don't know how we're going to function by ourselves, but the marriage is contributing to the problem. So we're having more and more trauma, which is breaking us down more and more physically. And it's like, okay, can't survive if I'm on my own, but I can't survive if I stay here. Like, how do I do this? And then, like, now that we're talking about it, like, as I reflect, I'm like, man, it took like obviously it takes God and his power and his strength and his work and all that stuff. But it's like, man, that took a lot of like,
Yeah.
it comes with a lot of bravery and courage to finally decide, like, okay, I'm gonna make this choice anyways. Like, yes, this is scary. Yes, I have no idea I'm gonna function, but I'm not gonna allow this person, this trauma, this marriage, or anything else that's coming from it to keep knocking me down. I gotta take one out of here so I can focus on this other.
Yeah, I felt like I was going to die if I stayed in the marriage, like for sure. And
Yeah.
I felt like the only way that I had any chance of survival was to get out, and I just had to find a way. And so I worked physical labor when I first got out, but now I work from home. That's the only work I can do. And so it's gone in stages, where I had to like grieve that also, that I can't even work outside from the home. Like there's just lots of things that you end up going through. It's hard.
As you've gone through the divorce, processed through what's going on, you're accepting that these are the pieces that I need to grieve. What do you guys do to help hold on to hope or remind yourself that you're not crazy or validate that you're what tools do you guys use? What things do you do now just to help function? What have you learned through this experience that's now part of your life to help you function?
For me, I focus on what I can do. I focus on, taking care of myself. Like, I think you guys probably are familiar with the spoon theory. So each day, you're given, like, if you look at your health as like how many spoons you're given. And so, like, some days you have like 5 spoons and you can do X number of things with those spoons. And then once that ener- energy or whatever is all used up, then that's it. That's your spoons for the day. And then some days you only have 1 spoon, or some days you have no spoons. And so you kind of measure your ability to function in like how many spoons. It's just like a measurement that somebody came up with. So if I wake up and I have no spoons, I stay in bed and I take care of myself, and I just make sure that everything is okay. Like my kids are adults now, so they can pretty much take care of themselves. I have very few responsibilities that I have to worry about. So I can just worry about myself. And work is flexible. Like everything, I can just really make my life function for the most part. That there's, every once in a while there's like a doctor's appointment. There are certain things that I have to get up for no matter what. Showering is optional. I'm sorry, but it is. Like if I don't have the spoons to take a shower, I don't have the spoons. Or if I need to get to the grocery store or shower, then I'm going to choose get to the grocery store. And sorry for the people that are at the grocery store if I smell, but you have to choose your activities. And so I learned to do that better and to accept that that's okay. Like I don't have to do things the way that I was always taught or that I was always felt like I needed to. So I focus on what I can do. And then I've also found ways to reach out to other people. Like I write cards and send them in the mail to people because people love doing that and no one does that. So I work with the kids at church and I always make sure they get birthday cards, and I send notes to people, thank you notes for things and things like that. And I can always do that. Online, there's lots of things that you can do. So I don't know if you notice I have blackout curtains behind me because light sensitivity is a thing. So when I have the ability to have screen time, there's like I can write, I can do a lot of things online. So whatever I can do, I try to do, and that gives me hope. I also have like sayings that are up along the wall by my bed of like hopeful things. They change every once in a while, just different things that help me to stay positive and to stay motivated to keep going. And I have friends online that I keep in touch with. Yeah, I mean, those are the main things. Obviously, prayer, reading the scriptures, like all of the things that I grew up doing that I know will help me spiritually to stay strong. And the church, like our church always has recommended, like if you're struggling with like mental health, that you should seek medical care, and turn to your Savior, and also have therapy. So those three things together, like, always help to like stay strong. And now with telehealth, you don't have to actually even leave. So all of those things help.
I love that. And at the end, when you're talking about scriptures and prayer and those things, I feel like sometimes when I engage in those things, the Spirit brings new ideas to my mind for how I can help with mitigating whatever is going on with my body. For example, I sleep in a hammock, which anytime I tell someone I sleep in a hammock, they always go, "Isn't that so uncomfortable?" And what they don't realize is how painful a bed is when it pushes on my body, and that the hammock just cradles in a better way. And so, but I would never thought of sleeping in a hammock. That was 100% something that just came to my mind. And I was like, maybe I'm just going to try sleeping in a hammock tonight. And it was so much better that now I have one in my bedroom instead of a bed because I sleep in a hammock. Patty, what about
Yeah,
you?
there's
What things have you brought into your life? You're muted.
Sorry, there was like an ambulance that went by and so the police car and everything, so I wanted to mute. So sorry. Okay. I I I liked what she was talking about just scripture and um just focusing on what you can do, measuring the ability to function, reaching out to others, trying to serve others. That's what I heard kind of you saying, Elaine. And I think for me, something that helps me is I have an app. It's actually called I Am, I think is what it's called. And so it sends me like affirmations all throughout the day. And so like even though I don't most of the time believe them, I still tell them to myself and I will still read them. They come to my watch and they come to my phone. And then actually right now on the iPhone, they have like where you can make like customized lock screens. And so right now I just have like the verse of the day that I screenshot every day. And then I have like 50 photos and they just like cycle through on my lock screen. So I always have like a new verse to read pretty much anytime I pick up my phone. I think something else that's huge that helps me is like even when I don't want to, like even when it feels like the scariest thing ever, and that I am just it's gonna make me emotional, but even when I feel like I am a drain and I'm just draining everyone around me, like I'm just this poison that comes into their life, I will reach out to others. Like, and it helps me so, so, so much. Like, it not only does it show me how much like love there is that people have for me, but like just how much people really, really do care for me. And I don't know, I just feel like it's a way that Jesus speaks to me is through other people. And so I think that that's something that really, really helps me is just reaching out to others. And then I think like as far as the hope part goes, it's like even if I don't feel him always or believe all the things or see all the things or whatever. Like, I just try to breathe the next breath, wake up the next morning, put the next foot in front of the other if I'm walking that day, and just knowing that like God's got me. So whether or not I really believe it that day, see it, feel it, any of that, I just try to keep telling myself that and just one breath after the next, just taking it as slow as possible if that's what I need to do. So yeah, I think that's a big thing. Oh, actually, I'm looking at it, so I'm going to mention it. This is something that's been helping me a lot lately, actually. It's called, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this lady. Her name is Joni Erickson Tata. I think she was like paralyzed from the neck down from like a diving accident or something. It was like when she was like in high school. So she kind of knew what it was like in her life to not be paralyzed and then to be completely paralyzed where she can't feed herself, can't do anything. And anyways, it's called When God Weeps, Why Our Sufferings Matter to the Almighty. And it's actually really, really a really good book. So it's something that my boss suggested to me. And yeah, I think that yeah, that's just been really helpful. And I'm trying to think if there's one other thing. Oh, the last thing I want to mention is that um even if like in the moment I don't see it as like, oh, that's God showing up for me, when I like take a step back and can just reflect, I think that gratitude, even like I said, if I don't feel it, like I know that it's something that everybody says it helps. And so like I do try to make a gratitude list every week and then just like really like trying to focus on, okay, what am I actually genuinely grateful? Not like a fake, like, oh, I'm so grateful for that. No, I mean like genuinely. Okay, I'm grateful that I do still have breath in my lungs. I am grateful that I had a 100% success rate getting through difficult days today. I am grateful for my bed. I'm grateful for warm tea. I'm grateful for whatever it may be. And like something that's just really helped me is I am really grateful for a boss that like I did make it out of my situation, and I do have a boss. I do work outside the home, and it's a boss that like literally could care less if I show up to work every day or not. Like he's just really, really great. I don't feel well, he does not want me here. If I feel well, great, come to work. As long as the job gets done, which I can do it at home or here, that's all that he is worried about. And so it's just like that's been a huge blessing for me, and where like God has really shown up for me. So yeah, I guess just looking for those little moments.
You mentioned reaching out to other people. That one of the lessons that I've had to learn as well is allowing other people to help me and realizing that they're also blessed and that they need those blessings. And that's something,
Yes.
because I've always taken care of other people, that I've had to learn, like, hey, other people want to help me too. And so that's something that's been hard, but I've learned that, yeah, in whatever way. And so I've been more vocal and been able to like tell them like, this is what I need and this is what I need, and if you could do this, please, like that would be helpful. And then they enjoy helping me, and it's weird to me because I never experienced that before. So it's nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mourning with those that mourn, comforting those that stand in need of comfort, strengthening the feeble knees. All of that is covenant keeping behavior. And in order for that kind of covenant keeping behavior to happen, there has to be someone who is mourning and someone who needs comforting and someone whose knees are not so strong. And it's really hard to be on that side. It's so much more comfortable to be the one that's actively giving rather than the one that's going, look, I'm a little bit vulnerable and these are some things that I could need. But we're taught that as we keep those covenants, as we honor those duties given to us and by God, that we gain power and the other person gains power, and it just strengthens both. And so I really like that acknowledgement, Elaine, of sometimes asking for help or letting people help me is important. You talked about the things around your house that you have. This is the one that I have hanging up, and it reminds me of what you guys were just saying. It says, "Good morning. This is God. I will be handling all your problems today, and I will not need your help. So have a great day."
That's fabulous.
Love that.
Sometimes all my problems are I can't get out of bed. He's like, "That's okay. I'll get the rest of your day. You're fine. You don't need to worry about it." And sometimes all my
I
problems
love that.
are a lot of effort. And he's like, "You just do the effort that you can. I've got the rest of it. It's fine." So that's mine that I look at every day that reminds me, okay, God's got this. I don't have to be in charge of it. I just have to do however many spoons I have. Patty, Elaine, and we were interacting in a group together, and that's how we all met. And I have this very distinct memory of the day that I learned about spoon theory. And I'm so excited to come and share it in the group. And I said, has anyone ever heard about spoon theory? And Elaine, you're the one that stands out in my mind. You were like, yes, I have, and proceeded to tell me so much more about it. And I felt so seen and so validated. And then Patty joined the conversation, and the three of us just sat and talked about chronic illness for a while. We probably dominated that group a little bit, but it was so healing and so important to have a place where what I was saying was understood without me having to figure out how to explain it. That I could just say spoon theory, and you both were like, yes, we know what you're talking about, and we can make some assumptions about how hard it is for you to function based on the fact that you know what this is. And so reaching out sometimes takes that little bit of this is a tidbit of what I'm going through, until you find the people who understand the language that you're speaking, and you remember that you're not alone and it's okay and you're not crazy. And lots of people understand when you start looking for those people.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Elaine brought an interesting song for us today.
Yes, I'm so excited.
To our mic drop. Tell us about the song that you chose.
Okay, the song I chose is Take 5 by the Dave Brubeck Quartet, and it is an instrumental song. So sorry that there are no lyrics to discuss, but
no, that's okay. I love it.
My song of healing because during my whole marriage, well, I loved jazz, and it was a big part of like my identity before I got married, and during my marriage it kind of got lost. And so it's one of my favorite jazz songs, and it's just like a jazz standard. And so rediscovering myself was really important when I got out of the marriage. And that was one of the songs that helped me to remember, like, oh yeah, this is something that was a huge part of me that I really love. The name Take 5 reminded me to do self-care. and to take care of myself. And then it also is just like, it's a very upbeat, joyful song. And I was going through so much grief and heaviness and mourning, and it just really helped me to just like listen to it every day and just have those few minutes of joy in my day. And so for me, it was a really powerful song. I have a whole list of jazz songs that helped me, but that's like my favorite one. And interestingly enough, it's written in 5/4 time. So for musicians that you'll know, it's a very unusual one. It's actually why it's named Take 5, because it's written in 5/4. And I felt like I related to that because it's unusual and different, and it stands out that way. And I also learned that the composer that actually wrote it, when he passed away, he left the rights to the song to the American Red Cross. So it's actually helping people. So all of every time you buy it, every time you hear it or whatever, the proceeds or whatever, like whatever it's called, go to the American Red Cross. So all the way around, it's a healing song all the way around.
Wow. That is amazing. That is like not where I thought we were going at all. And that like just rocked my world. That was so awesome. Okay, I love that. Like it reminded you of like a piece of yourself from before. It's a joyful, upbeat tune, and the Take 5 reminds you of self-care. It's like, oh my gosh, I know exactly why you picked this song. Like that is literally amazing. Like I'm so glad that you picked it. And it just has such a like impactful meaning to me now. I love it. That is so cool.
Yeah, and I can hear like 2 bars of it, and I know exactly what song it is, and it's very distinctive. It's a jazz standard, everyone knows it, but like very distinctive.
It was funny. So we pulled up your song, Patty and I was like, I haven't heard of her song. Do you want to listen to it with me? And she was like, sure. So we start playing it, and I'm listening. I'm like, I recognize this tune. Do 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 do. I know this song, but does it have lyrics? And we were both giggling like, does this song have lyrics? Or it's like, I think it's just a jazz standard. Did she know she was sending us a jazz? So at one point in the conversation, I said, okay, well, this is exactly what she put in the form. This is the song that she's chosen. So I have a feeling that if she's chosen this instrumental song, it's because there's a really powerful reason, and I can't wait to learn it. And boy, did you deliver.
Yes,
I
100%.
love that. We've talked before on the podcast about the importance of reclaiming and the importance of like taking back. And I've talked about how my favorite part of recovery is finding those pieces of myself and recovering them and bringing them back home where I can feel them again. And so the fact that this song represents that for you is really cool. I'm going to think of it differently forever now, because it is such a good upbeat song. But then the fact that it represents like finding pieces of myself after divorce and pulling them back in. It's just beautiful.
Yes, it really is. Gosh, this has been like such a good episode, and I'm so glad that we did this. I just feel like this is so needed in like not only the chronic illness community, but the divorce community and just the world itself. And so it's just like, yeah, I'm really glad we did this. Thank you, Elaine, so much for being willing to come on and be vulnerable and share with us all that you did, and kind of putting a piece of yourself out there. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Thank you, Elaine. This has been so great. All right, Phoenix Forte listeners, thanks so much. We'll see you again next time. And remember, you're not crazy and you're not alone.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We would love to hear from you. Please connect with us on social media at Phoenix Forte Pod, POD. Feel free to send us any questions or comments on Instagram.